Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. Does AI offer a silver bullet to the incredible challenge of driver recruiting? Well, I don't know for sure, but my next guest has a few things to share about that. Please welcome Dan Tram, CEO and founder of Everest AI. Dan, welcome to the Hot Seat.
Thanks so much, Spencer. Really good to be here with you.
Well, I'm very excited to unpack what you're working on. But before we jump in and heat things up a little bit, why don't you just take 30 seconds and tell us a little bit about Everest AI and what you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm CEO and founder of Everest AI. And what we have built for carriers is a driver recruiter. It's an agent that will call people. Sounds very real. And what it does for the company are two things. One, it really helps the recruiting team find out who the good drivers are and where they should spend time. And two, it also reduces time to hire because now your recruiting team are spending time where they should versus spending time on voicemail or ringing tones or drivers that potentially don't qualify.
I love it. Well, let's back up. Let's provide a little context for our audience here. So you and I, we met at the Benish Private Equity Transportation Investing event. We'll get to that here in a second, but tell us about the genesis. How did you even, of all the things, the problems that you could potentially solve, how did you land on driver recruiting?
Yeah, for sure. I can appreciate what the work that you guys do at the Tenney Group. I myself started my career in investing, and I actually worked at Volvo Group, the truck manufacturer. And there I saw many companies, both carriers, brokers, 3PLs, all across logistics. And there's one thing that kept coming up is drivers. And regardless if you're in a boom market or in a bust market, we always talk about this driver shortage. And part of that solution people think will be autonomous trucks. Personally, it will not solve the problem. Autonomous trucks will solve a very small part of the market, not the larger part. So it's always been something that I think that it's a problem to be solved. When I dig a little bit more into it, well, what are the industry stats? Well, on average, 95% is the turnover rate annually for a trucking company. And that's insane. If you have a company with, call it 200 trucks, that means that you're hiring about 190 drivers every year. And that requires a full-time team to do that. So when we founded the company, we always founded the company to be AI first, helping carriers and brokers. And then we really think about the tools that exist today and how do we marry those tools with a problem that exists. I think for driver recruiting, it's perfect. There's so many teams today that spend a lot of money and time on driver recruiting. It's not efficient because you have people that are hard to reach, people that are hard to find. And then we think about, well, how can we solve that problem? How can we systemize the process, make it easier? How can we enable a carrier to do more on recruiting to get their dollar further when they spend $1 on advertising or on recruiting?
Yeah. I think this is really fascinating because there's all this tension. We even talked about at the Benish meeting when we were there together, there's just an infinite amount of ways to apply AI to your business. And it's often overwhelming for many of the folks. But let's unpack this. We talk about the 95% driver turnover. What is the cost of that? Like, what have you learned about what does that actually cost organizations? Of course, there's a lot of pieces to that. But let's define and open up that problem a little bit more.
Yeah, no, great question. So talking to many carriers, the cost to hire a driver ranges anywhere from $3,000 to it can go up to $15,000 if it's a specialized driver, let's call it tanker, hazmat, in some specialized role. So on the low end, you have $3,000. On the high end, you have $15,000 to cost to hire one driver, right? So let's say you have a fleet of 200 trucks, and let's say it costs you $5,000 to hire a driver. Well, within 1 year, you're probably hiring 190 drivers. The cost of that is $1 million. So on an annual basis, a carrier spends $1 million on hiring drivers. That's straight to EBITDA, straight to bottom line.
No, that's a lot right there. So tell us about what are the most cumbersome. I mean, for a lot of our audience, they understand this, but some are so close. You just kind of accept this, like this is the way that it is. But what are some of the functions that you have identified that can be replicated through AI and begin to reduce the human, the necessity of human touch on this process? What does that look like?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think when we think about this, it's worth mentioning that in logistics, the human relationship is key, right? Every part of logistics, I think that is what I often hear from people, and that's also what I witness myself. So the personal relationship is so important to maintain. So the question is, how do we maintain that, meanwhile adding value to business at the same time? So when you look at that and really deep into the recruiting process, where Everest helped and is very effective with some large carriers is specifically on the pre-screening side. So as soon as a driver applies to a company, that one driver also applied to 10 other companies at the same time. Now, the problem is whoever can reach that driver first, that driver will probably fill out that application and continue with that process. So now carriers are trying to reach that driver as fast as they can. The problem, of course, is that if driver applies after hours, recruiters don't work after hours. Or if they apply at night, recruiters don't work at night. And not to mention that while these recruiting teams are already really busy with the current pipeline of candidates they're working through. So they get to these candidates as fast as they can, but who can get to that candidate first? So what Everest does is as soon as they apply, Everest gives them a call and will ask the driver, hey, saw that you applied. There's a voice assistant with carrier X. Do you have a few minutes to chat? And we'll chat with the driver. And then through that process, what we see is that because the Everest talks to, let's call it 1,000 drivers, it can then slim down and it will then update the system and say, these are the 500 drivers your recruiting team should talk to. Here are the qualifications. They don't have any accidents. They've worked at these 3 different jobs. They have these requirements. Here are the preferences. On these other drivers, they're actually not that great of a fit. You should take a review and look at them. But from our initial view, they're not that good of a fit. So now the recruiting team can very much focus on where they should focus their effort, right? On the people that matter, the people that fit their business.
No, I like that a lot. It's definitely the Ricky Bobby principle. If you ain't first, you're last in terms of getting to these drivers. I mean, that's 90% of the battle based on, I don't know if you've got the data to back that up, but getting there first is essential. And then the other part about that is you're not misusing your most expensive resources just to go do that pre-qualification at hours of the night, which would probably be either you don't do it at all, or if you do it manually, it's got to be extremely expensive. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely right. And recruiters are really good at their job, right?
Yeah.
But they're really good at bringing drivers on and like building that relationship. But then have them do what they're good at and have an AI do what's repetitive and well,
let me just kind of pivot just a little bit. I'm very curious to what you're seeing in the driver recruiting space based on all the disruption that's going on with the current administration and how they're trying to clean up the integrity and the safety on the roads and how that is reducing the pool of drivers out there. How's that affecting driver recruiting, both in terms of the pool, but also the methodology? What are you doing to try to best attract who remains?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some positives in that, is that now you're required to speak good English. And because now you have an AI that speaks English, we do speak other languages as well. But now if you speak English to an AI and it can understand you, you can understand the AI. Well, that's kind of a first filter. There was no questions that needed to be asked, do you speak English or not? Because now every candidate that's passed you, that candidate speaks English, right?
So you understand the words coming out of my mouth?
So simply by using Everest, that is a filter that happens. So that's one thing, right? I think that helps in that process. But in terms of kind of, what is happening with the driver pool? Well, I think driving jobs are becoming less attractive. You have people leaving the industry. So recruiting is becoming harder for sure. So how do you reach these people? Well, I think you have to be fast. I think you have to be personable in some capacity. Because in today's day and age, right, if somebody applies to your company, if you can call them right away, well, they're more likely to engage with you than they are with somebody else that's going to send you an email, 3 hours later or 3 days later, right? Do I want to, as a driver, I'm driving. Do I want to pick up the phone and talk to somebody while I'm driving, or answer an email? Well, answering emails out of the question, right? Doesn't even work. So it's what's happening in the market right now. I think at this moment in time, there are some capacity constraints that we're seeing. It's not showing up in driver recruiting yet, but I'm curious to see how it's going to turn out. If I would have a magic ball, well, because capacity is leaving the market, higher requirements, I think it's just going to be harder to find drivers. Finding hard to find drivers means that, well, now the recruiting team just have to put more effort into ads or calling people, right? Or be sure that when people apply that you really reach them. That's what I would anticipate to happen. It's really hard to say at this moment what's happening yet, right?
Yeah, you're kind of interesting, Dan. You don't see a lot of former investment bankers getting into the driver recruiting / AI world. But I think where our audience will appreciate, like, where our worlds intersect is around this value creation element. And I do think that, as you had mentioned, I mean, this is straight to the bottom line. This is straight to EBITDA, and it's pretty formulaic in terms of how you think about business valuation. What, I mean, you guys, I don't know how long you have been around, but is there enough sample of data to kind of understand when you're utilizing Everest AI, what's the unit cost to recruit a driver when this is part of the the package? Do you have any data on that?
Yeah. So the unit cost to hire a driver, that lives with our customers, right? So that differs, and we don't have full insight into that. But there are some data points that we do have insights into, which is time to hire significantly reduces. I mean, there's some stats that reduced it from, I think there are different statuses that changed from like 70 hours before using Everest to 15 hours after using Everest. That's like the full process.
Wow.
So that is per driver, right? So you can think about, if you hire 10 drivers, if you're saving, 55 hours per driver, it could be quite significant across a larger pool. That's one stat. We see that there's about a 95% acceptance rate of when our agent calls and talks to drivers, which is incredibly surprising. That's the first thing, right? People don't think that drivers are willing to talk to our agent, but I think when they see the data, it's quite surprising to them. So those are some of the things that we see in terms of cost of recruiting, how much we can reduce that by. We would anticipate we can reduce it at least by 30%, if not up to 70%. So that's kind of the range. It could even be more. It just depends on how large the team is and how much they spend on budget and whatnot. But that really also depends on the ops of the company.
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions in terms of just the overall receptiveness of the drivers by what's it like? Like when they first discover, oh, I'm talking to a bot basically, or whatever the language is that you guys use. Voice AI platform. What's generally the first response? What do they experience?
I mean, we human are very smart, and so the agent will say, "Hi, I'm with Company X, and I'm an AI." So that's the first thing that the agent says, and then it will continue on.
Interesting.
So some drivers will say, "Hey, so are you an AI?" And they'll say, "Yeah, I'm an AI. Do you prefer a recruiter to follow up?" And majority of the times they say, "No, I'm okay." And they continue on to have a 5-minute conversation. And again,
I love the how courteous that is, right? Like it's like you're like when the AI says, "Would you prefer to talk to a human being?" I mean, that's I could see how, if given the option, people are like, "No, I'm good. I'm not going to be that guy. Like I'll hang in here." But just because you asked, I think that's really savvy. I don't know who came up with that idea at your team, or if that's where that came from, but I could see how that's highly effective.
Yeah, we've been around before OpenAI became cool and then ChatGPT was around. We were founded in 2022, and we've always iterated in logistics and for carriers, building different tools that exist out there. And driver recruiting, this technology is something that didn't exist 18 months ago, right? It wasn't possible. So we built it and we deployed it. So it's new technology, right? So I don't think anybody wakes up in a day and says, hey, can I have an AI that sounds really human and that can save me 50% cost in recruiting and be systemized? That's not how we think about the world today. But with AI, things are moving so fast that our goal is kind of educate, share what's possible out there.
You know, we've had several guests over the last 6 months, experts around AI, doing really interesting things across the supply chain. And one of the conversations, one of the themes that we've had, primarily from our audience of business owners in this space is like, how do I know? Like, I know I should be doing something with AI. I could be doing something at every area of my business. How do I decide where to invest my time and energy? And I guess my question to you would be can you make the case for our audience of why that should be? Like, if you're not going to do anything else in terms of AI, this is where you need to focus your energy. Why would it be driver recruitment as a problem to solve?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's because they will see results within the first weeks of it. I mean, quite frankly, we jump on a call and we set up a demo, takes a meeting, and then we will, in that call drivers. In that first meeting, they will see results. They'll be amazed by the fact that they can contact 100 drivers in 10 minutes.
It's interesting because, I think what most people expect is that, well, there's two camps. One camp expects immediate results, and in a lot of cases, that's highly unrealistic. And then another camp is very pessimistic, like this could take years before I figure this out, before I have any impact, but I need to get in the game and start doing some experimenting. I think it's really interesting from a value proposition that you can deliver on that. It definitely makes it easier to invest, quite frankly. I mean, I could see why it makes it very easy to invest in something where you feel like there's going to be one way or another, you're going to see what the results should be within a week, right?
Absolutely. They're going to see it. Yeah. I mean, again, this is new technology, right? This is something that didn't exist 18 months ago. And it's I live in San Francisco, and it's a great place to be. But we've always focused on logistics, and we've been around for quite some time, and our team comes from logistics as well. So we really want to marry what is the latest and greatest technology with what solves real problems. And I think there's a study from some big consulting firm or school that came out and said that, 95% of AI deployments fail without real results. And if you look at across all industries, I'm not surprised by where we were 3 years ago, 2 years ago. Right? Because it was a lot of figuring out exactly what you're talking about, Spencer. But then we asked ourselves as a team, that's all fine. But trucking has not been an easy industry. How do we do something that adds value literally within the first 1 to 2 weeks? And that is undisputable. Yeah. Because ultimately, that in itself, if you add true value, it's not about if it's an AI or not. Doesn't quite matter. But we can bring value, and it's going to be at a more effective way or cost-effective way than you do today. And then back to the valuation you talk about. I mean, if you can save $1 million that goes to EBITDA, well, you put a 5 or 10 times multiple on that. Now you just increase enterprise value, right?
Now pump the brakes, Dan. I don't want my guys thinking there's 10 times multiples on asset-heavy businesses out there. We might have to cut that, sir. No, but without question, I mean, I think that's what, why do you do that? Because if this goes to the bottom line, a multiple of some kind is going to be applied to that at the point of exit. Right. So you mentioned that you have been iterating across, a variety of different AI functions throughout logistics over the last 3 to 4 years. What's next for Everest? What are you guys working on? What are you excited about?
Yeah. I mean, I think that the world of AI is very exciting. I envision a world where, a carrier, they deal with a lot of operational overhead. It's very operational heavy. One of them is recruiting, right? It's this repetitive task that people do. And there's some tasks in people's everyday life that people don't like. We have another product that does data entry and order entry. I have yet to find a person that walks into the office and says, oh my God, I love my data entry piece of the job, right? And that's the perfect piece where like you give that to Everest and we take care of that for you. So when we think about Everest, we think about how can we enhance what people are really good at and how can we become that operating partner for a carrier where they can continue to grow with the same amount of people and all these menial tasks are being done by AI because that's what it's good at. But all the strategic and tactical tasks are done by people. So that's how we think about it. What does that mean in terms of product? Order entry is obviously one. Track and trace is obviously next one, or like driver recruiting is a very clear one as well.
Yeah. So kind of put your futurist hat on here. As you kind of look out over the next 4 or 5 years, what is the most shocking thing that you think we'll see that's AI related that nobody sees coming in logistics?
Yeah. I think 4 and 5 years from now, there won't be a company out there that operates without like significant influence of AI. To me, that is very clear. And it's not a matter of if, it is just how fast. And quite frankly, that might be in 2 years from now. I don't know. But what I do know from like where I'm sitting here in Silicon Valley is that the rate of technology advancement is absolutely insane. And not only like boots on the ground, what I see in technology, but you can look at our team and how we've developed and the products we launched and what's possible. Like when we show teams our demo, people are absolutely amazed. But then also you look at on the other side, the capital investments by being done by like Meta and Google, like they spend $600 billion plus per company on CapEx, right? So that just further fuels in this. So, and we can also look back, right? We think about the internet, the .com. But today, there's literally no trucking company that does not operate without internet. It's impossible, right? Yeah. But that took, 20 years maybe to happen? Where we are today, 15 years. But that rate of change for AI to be as prevalent will be a lot shorter because we are just more advanced as people. We just deploy technology faster, right? Everybody's smarter. So that's what I mean. It's very clear that it will be it won't be a topic of conversation. It's just a given. You don't operate without it.
I definitely see that. I mean, of course, with 3 years plus of a tough freight market, you've got an aging demographic. It definitely appears to be kind of a culling of either kind of a adopt or die type situation. Right. For those that don't have successors, of course, we're seeing that across the board. I got one last question for you, Dan, this has been a fascinating conversation. A little bit of a wild card, if you will. I'm interested in young Dan going out in his first job in his career in investment banking. What advice would you give to young Dan as he goes out into the career field on how to be the most valuable person for a company or for himself, for a customer? What would be the most valuable business advice you would give to young Dan going out and securing that first job?
Yeah. What I would say to young Dan is really think about what like gets you up in the morning and pursue that. Because once you do what you love, then you won't work another day in your life.
All right, Dan. Dropping pearls of wisdom in the hot seat. That's going to do it for us, sir. I really thank you for being with us. Can't wait to see what you do next. We will see you next time.